So I got my first Anatolian cross in July of 2010. He was 3/4 Anatolian and 1/4 Great Pyrenees. He was a wonderful dog. He did the job he was bred to do from 8 weeks old. He alerted to a black bear sow in our yard going after the goats. I've got a story about that. It involves me chasing the bear off with a sword.
Wow.
But, I mean, just a wonderful dog. And, because an 8-week-old puppy, they can't take on a black bear. It's just not fair. But, I mean, so to that point, that's what kind of opened my eyes to, like, oh, this breed, like, wow, they're really incredible. Looking at, in 2010, the availability of a purebred Anatolian Shepherd that was from working lines, that was actively working with livestock, was not great. We moved from Phoenix up to Montana that year, and I had to go over to Washington State just to get my mutt male. So if that tells you anything, like, they were harder to come by. The LGDs now, it seems everybody's breeding them, but yeah, getting my first one, it was hard to find him, and then I got him, and he was wonderful. And at that point, I started looking into the purebreds. I called around to different breeders. I was in my 20s. I was, 10 years ago? I was 22. That did not help the long-term invested breeders trust me very much. Right. I was like the young whippersnapper who wanted to, like, ruin their dogs probably because I had a mutt. That also didn't look good, right? And then, so I kind of got the idea that, like, no one was going to sell me a dog. So then I decided to go ahead and look at, Turkey. I'm like, well, I can maybe get one from overseas, and then I'll know it's legit. And if I get it off of, a goat operation, I know it'll work, hopefully. And the more people I talked to, the more they asked to talk to my husband, not me. Which is, when you're importing dogs, you run into cultural things, let's call them. And so one of the cultural things I was noticing in the Turkish breeders was they did not want to do business with a woman. They wanted to talk to my husband. And my husband is a wonderful man, but he does not have my same knowledge of dogs. Or, I mean, he loves the dogs. He thinks they're great. But he doesn't make the decisions for the dogs. That's me. So, after talking to a few guys over in Turkey who were like, yeah, put your husband on the phone. And I'm like, he's at work, and also he doesn't really care. Like, let's be honest, my husband doesn't care. If I'm happy with a dog, he'll be happy with the dog. Like, he doesn't want to talk to you about dogs. Whereas I will sit on the phone for hours and talk about dogs. Right. So, that kind of turned me off. I mean, in 2012, I was basically like, well, screw Anatolians then if I can't get people to work with me. I bred crosses for a bit, and then my original male got injured working and actually got paralyzed in his rear legs. And he ended up, like, crawling and, like, digging himself a hole and getting into it. So he was, like, done after 2 weeks of hydrotherapy and laser treatments and steroids and everything. He was just like, I can't work. I'm done. That was horrible, but it created a vacuum in my pack. So I had to find another dog that could take his place pretty seamlessly and pretty quickly. Because I had a young dog and I had my other mixed bitch. And so that's when I got my Char male, Duke. That's how I got Duke, because he was 20 months old. He was a leader of his, like, litter mates and his pack. He was very good at his job. He was the pick. I went ahead and I brought him in. And so that's how I got into the Chars. And now after, 5.5 years with the Chars, I'm, I've always liked the Anatolians. I've always liked them a lot. It's just getting people to trust me with them has been a bit of a journey. But I, almost 2 years ago, got on a wait list for a Anatolian puppy, and that's my female that I have now, that I got about a year and a half ago. And she's from a very, very reputable breeder down in Southern California. And I now just brought in a male from that same breeder, actually, who was in New Mexico and having troubles with barking. The neighbors did not appreciate him. So I brought him up here. And he's not barking at all, and he's wonderful. So he just needed a different type of environment, probably, is all it was. And so he's doing great, and we're really excited for them. He's got OFA'd good hips, and CV will go in March to get her hips evaluated. So if that all comes in good and their DNA comes back right, we will hopefully have Anatolian puppies in 2021. Awesome. So it's a really nice breed. It's got, the good and the bad to it, like any breed. But they are good at their jobs. They are consistent. And if you get them from the right places, they're excellent. So the Anatolian Shepherd dog is an AKC recognized breed. They were sort of invented here in the U.S. An Anatolian Shepherd is basically a livestock guardian dog from Turkey. So that is pretty all-encompassing. The Kangals, which are tan with a black mask, to the Akbash, which are solid white, and really to the field dogs that are mostly in any color you can imagine, except for Merrill. So the Anatolian standard is pretty wide open on color. They say that all colors are acceptable. That's a blessing and a curse in and of itself, just because you've got people who want to breed the white ones to have white ones, and you have people who really love the brindles, or people who want the traditional look. When you have a dog breed that's so wide open, you definitely have factions form of people who only want one look. It's a little funky that way, but these are large sized dogs. They are very loyal, somewhat independent, but I find that the Anatolians do care more about my opinions than maybe some of the other LGD breeds do. They bond well to their people. They are really dutiful with the stock if you have them working with livestock. It can get intense, but I think they're like more the sprinters of the dog world. So if nothing's going on, they're pretty laid back, and it's nap city. But if something is going down, they get serious real quick. They can basically range. I think my female's probably going to hit 100 pounds when she's grown, and my male's about 120. There are people with larger versions and slightly smaller versions. With the Anatolians, the good points are that they're more commonly sold and used for family dogs. They're more popular than some of the other LGD breeds, which is a blessing and maybe not so much. But that does come with people who care about health testing. You can find a health tested Anatolian litter in almost any state, I would guess, at some point this next year. They're available. There are good dogs available in the breed, and there are people who have been in the breed since its inception, I think 50 years now. So it's a newer breed, but it's built off of ancient breeds. So it's not that new. Some of the bad stuff, people, especially Kangal people who just have the fawn color black mask dogs from Turkey with no white markings, the tight coat. they will say that the Kangal is the true LGD of Turkey, and that the Anatolian is basically street dog mutts.
Mm-hmm.
That's their opinion. They are entitled to it. There are also people who, think that Americans have no business naming a dog from another country and combining breeds together. A lot of Turkish people are not super a fan for, that reason, and I get it, and I don't fault them for that at all. It's a little presumptuous of us, I think, at some point to be like, we're going to take all your dogs and mush them together and call them our new breed. But, as it stands, the breed is functional. It does the job it was bred to do. They're pretty adaptable. I've seen them go from being a full-time working stock dog to, if that family sells the farm and moves to town, that Anatolian can adjust from stock life to guarding the family and the home and the yard a lot easier than some other breeds have. So I find them very adaptable. I find them, workable, responsive. They're wonderful temperament dogs. That can vary by the lines. Another iffy thing about the Anatolians is there are some genealogy lines that are affected with not like actual Springer rage, but if you remember Springer rage from like the 90s, where a lot of Springer Spaniels would just, for no good reason, just kind of snap and bite their family. There are some similar symptoms that we've seen in some of the not necessarily AKC registered Anatolian dogs, but people who call them an Anatolian Shepherd, and then it does some crazy stuff. It is usually motivated by resource guarding. From what I've seen, there was one guy who got mauled by his own dog and almost killed by his own dog for trying to take a dead piglet away from him. So with a great size and temperament dog does come great responsibility, and we do have to, check ourselves and our dogs. But, for all the bad things that come along with the breed, I think the good definitely outweighs them. And everyone I've met personally, including some of the offshoots, like you'll hear about probably the Boz Shepherd at some point if you're delving deep into Turk-bred dogs. And whether or not you believe a Boz Shepherd is a breed, or if you believe it's an LGD breed or a fighting dog breed, at the end of the day, if it's a fawn black mass dog from Turkey, a lot of people would call that a Kangal or an Anatolian. So they do kind of get lumped in, even though they do have, like the Malakli, the Mastiff bred into them, and some other breeds coming in that basket of fun. So, it's hard for a new person, I think, to look at an Anatolian Shepherd dog and be able to discern what exactly it is, and if it actually is what people are calling it. I would just refer them to the AKC or the Anatolian Shepherd Dog Club of America. Check the standard, see if that breeder is actually registered with the breed club. These things are important to check up on. And again, the health testing, if they're not health testing, please give someone else your money. Just because, you're not getting the full picture when you buy a untested line dog. You just don't know what you're getting. So, with these guys, it's important. They are, again, larger, and they need to have, every leg up we can give them to be healthy and long-lived. So, yeah, but they're really nice dogs. I mean, they love children. This male I got, he's 5. He has never lived with children, and I have feral farm children. I have a 6-year-old and an almost 9-year-old boys, and they are intense, let's say. And he has just taken it in complete stride. He's been here less than a week now, and he is just amazing. Awesome. Like, the day after he came here, my 6-year-old literally, like, fell with his knee on the dog's paw while he was asleep. And the dog, like, got up and startled, but did not bite my child, which I probably would have bit my child if it was me, that he did that too. It's like super solid temperament, amazing. Like, I just watched it in horror, of course, from across the room, and I was like, no! And he did perfect. So, you know, most dogs you take out of a situation where they've never hardly met human children to then getting trampled by a human child while they are asleep, you would assume that's a bite. That's just going to be a bite and we'll deal with it. No, it wasn't. It was amazing. I was just like, wow, you're like, I'm like, check the box for breeding quality on temperament right there. Like, nailed it. So, you know, there's things that I look at like that, and I'm like, you know what? I don't know that I would have handled it that well. Right. So, they're impressive. Like, that's all I can say. They're impressive dogs, and they, you know, after having dogs similar to them for 10 years, I look at that and I'm just like, wow, like, that's awesome. That's good breeding. That's generational. That's not just something that just happened on accident, you know, like that's built in for a long time to be stable. And that's good, especially in a dog that's 120 pounds. Yeah. So we like stable dogs.
What is your favorite breed that you've never owned or handled, but you're interested in? Why?
Ooh. I do. We did have an issue here with a neighbor involving them, like, pulling a gun on me on my own property. At that point, I did kind of wish that I had probably not a Malinois. They're just too much for me, but, like, probably a really well-bred working line German Shepherd that I could have, you know, sent up to go take care of somebody like that, rather than be held at gunpoint for 10 minutes until I convinced him to leave. And I mean, when that happened, it was by my pasture, but I sent my dogs up away because I was like, do not shoot my dogs. That's how much I love my dogs. I sent my dogs away from the active shooter. Yeah, I think if I was going to have a dog that I've never owned and handled, and it would be a trained bite work. Either a Dutchie, probably, or a German Shepherd. But again, it would have to come from really nice lines, temperament tested, health tested, all that jazz. But if I'm going to throw 20 grand at a dog, that would probably be the dog that I, you know, shut up and take my money. Give me a trained dog that can do exactly what I tell it to do when I tell it to do it. That's something I've not had or handled. So I think that would be cool to have, but I don't have a daily use for them like I have for the LGDs, you know? Right. So, was one of, like, the older school jacks, just because you can go rat with them. Yeah. Not like new, like, not the Parsons, not like, even with, like, I don't even need a breed standard or a club to go with that. If I'm having them to, like, you know, warm my feet up on the couch and also go out and do something productive, yeah, I'd probably pick, like, an old school Jack Russell to go out and, you know, clear barns and clear vehicles. I mean, here we've got chipmunks that will eat through electric wires for God knows why. They'll also eat seals out around the tractor and stuff. They chew on the seals and cause leaks and all that stuff. So, like, yeah, something that could get into small, tight spaces, do some groundwork, and mostly do, like, just general ratting, mousing, and stuff like that. I think a little terrier would be handy.
Yeah, most definitely.
Of course, I understand that I'm literally talking about only dogs that can work.
Yeah.
Like, I grew up with boxers, and they were just pets. I've had pet dogs. What I find is that when I have a pet dog that has no purpose outside of being a pet, it is disastrous to me when they when they eventually pass away.
Okay, yeah.
When I have working dogs, I'm like, you know what? They did good work. They fulfilled their purpose. I have a better sense that, like, I gave them a good life when I can take a working bred dog and give it the opportunity to do what it wanted to do.
Uh-huh.
I feel better about that no matter how they die.
Yeah.
Than if I just had them sit on the couch with me for their whole life. And I'm like, God, was that enough? I don't like that feeling.
Right.
So I like knowing that I gave them a good life that they wanted at the end of it. Absolutely. Then I can feel, good about it no matter what.